Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Folks, we got a great show for you. First and foremost, we check in with our favorite analyst and professor, Dr. Gerald Horne, to give us the latest around Biden's trip to the Middle East, latest with Russia, and Dr. Horne's newest and latest book talking about slavery and Jim Crow. So we'll break that all down for you. Also, we're going to talk about to run or not run. There is some stark differences of where we stand from 2020 to the 2024 election, where Trump and Biden are both in trouble. We'll break down the latest numbers. At the 4 o'clock hour, I will talk to new author Civ Jones to talk about how hip hop has saved her life in her new book. And then later, it is election day in the great state of Maryland. Two big contests that folks are keeping their eyes on. The governor's race there, and of course, the Baltimore City state's attorney's race. So we'll have those breakdown with our culture crew. We are going to be joined by Lee Swinney and Iman Heath. So stay with us, folks. A lot coming at you on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. You ready? I'm ready to go. So let's get it. All right, folks, welcome to the show this afternoon. Hopefully you are having a fantastic Tuesday. So happy Tuesday for all of you that are checking in today. Folks, we got a great show for you this afternoon. Let's start off the conversation with the great professor from the University of Houston who speaks about everything from race to foreign policy. And he's the author of a new book that has come out. Folks, I'm so happy to have him as one of our top analysts here on the show, Dr. Gerald Horne, to talk to us a little bit about what's been happening across the waters, as there's been a lot of criticism and some discussion around President Biden's recent trip to the Middle East, as the president visited Israel as well as Palestine, and some of the big talk around there. Also, we're going to have a conversation about the latest with Russia and how Russia are actually putting out the narrative, folks, that there are super mutant, super soldiers that Ukraine has created in labs, which is why they are not taking over Ukraine quite as fast. What the hell? Let's bring in our analyst, Dr. Gerald Horne. Doc, good to see you as always, sir. How are you this afternoon? We got you on. Are you? Make sure you get yourself.
You have muted me.
Oh, okay. There we go. There we go, Doc. There you go. How you feeling this afternoon, sir?
Oh, I'm fine. And yourself?
I'm good. Doc, let's first start off talking about a little bit around what's happening with the president and this trip to the Middle East. There has been expectations. Let me start there, Doc. There were some high expectations that the president, and this is what I read on both sides of the aisle. One is that the president would come to the Middle East, making a hard stance against Palestine and Iran and Saudi Arabia. And then, you know, a lot of people expected him to coddle up to the leadership of Israel. And then on the other side of it, people said, no, the president is there to create a more diplomatic pathway for him between the United States and the Islamic countries of the Middle East as a result of what's going on in Russia. So, but we're seeing actually a little bit of both. First, let's talk about his trip to Israel, where the president put out some strong words once again, as past U.S. presidents have done. Dr. Horne has shown his unwavering solidarity for the state of Israel. The president said this, and Keenan, let's post the first quote. That quote the president said about Israel, how the relationship between Israel, the connection between the Israeli people and the American people is quote unquote bone deep. He later added, as long as we're the United States, you will never, ever be alone, emphasizing American financial and militaristic support for Israel particularly in face of Iranian military threats. And he's talking about Iran, the talk around Iran's nuclear capacity. Bone deep, Dr. Horn. This, what do we make of this, especially given the fact that some people feel like, hey, Israel is not always the victim when it comes to its relationship with Palestine and other regions in that part of the world?
That is certainly the case. And with regard to Iran, which was the elephant in the room during the discussions with the Israeli authorities, you should focus on the daylight between Mr. Biden and Prime Minister Lapid. That is to say, Mr. Biden pledged the United States would use its formidable power to prevent an Iranian nuclear weapon. The Israelis focused on the Iranian nuclear program. Now, with regard to the latter, in light of this concern about climate change and in light of the boycott of Venezuelan oil and in light of the boycott of Russian oil, there's much more of an emphasis on nuclear power. France relies heavily on nuclear power to provide electricity. So when Mr. Lapid, the Israeli prime minister, suggests that he does not want Iran to even use nuclear power to provide electricity, it seems that that's a bridge too far. Mr. Biden also spent a scant few hours in the West Bank conferring with Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian Authority leader. That did not go down very well. Similarly, Mr. Mahmoud Abbas wanted Mr. Biden to pledge to investigate the recent slaying of a Palestinian journalist for Al Jazeera by the Israeli authorities. Mr. Biden made no such pledge. But perhaps the most controversial aspect of his trip was his journey to Saudi Arabia, with infamous fist bump delivered to the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. Now, Mr. Biden had pledged during his presidential race that he would make Saudi Arabia a, quote, pariah state, unquote, in light of the fact that Mohammed bin Salman, the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia, was accused by the own Central Intelligence Agency of Mr. Biden of participating and authorizing the assassination of a Saudi dissident journalist who wrote for the Washington Post. In fact, his body was dismembered in the Saudi consulate in Turkey, and his bone parts have yet to be found. Instead, you saw Mr. Biden go to Saudi Arabia, hat in hand, because from Mr. Biden's point of view and the point of view of his advisors, they want Saudi Arabia to pump more oil. The idea being that that will help to drive down the price of gasoline at the pump in the United States of America. The problem there is, number one, it's unclear if the Saudis have the capacity to pump more oil. And number two, even if they did, it's unclear if they were willing to break their de facto alliance with Moscow. Because Moscow has funded its intervention in Ukraine because the price of a barrel of petroleum has gone through the roof. The Saudis also are profiting handsomely from that. And it was unclear from the beginning if they would want a reduction in the price of a barrel of petroleum just to help out Mr. Biden, who would call their state a pariah. And if you look at the Wall Street Journal this morning, there's a scathing editorial denouncing Mr. Biden, and that's nothing new for the Wall Street Journal. The problem for Mr. Biden is that there are many folks in the Democratic Party who are equally scathing in their analysis of this trip. So it's fair to say that this was not Mr. Biden's finest hour, his journey to Israel and Saudi Arabia.
I saw another post. I saw another piece, and I believe it's on CNN, Dr. Horn, where they were making a point that Mr. Biden did the fist bump, but he left with nothing in hand, with very little in hand, and it makes me wonder, what do you see as being the goal for him? I mean, that maybe others, the rest of the world, may not be seeing.
Well, perhaps the Saudis will buy more U.S. Treasury bills. Treasury bills, as you know, are these financial instruments that are used to finance the US government, everything from the post office to the Pentagon. What's been happening is that China, which has been a major beneficiary or purchaser of treasury bills, have been dumping treasury bills, $100 billion worth in the past few months. And Saudi Arabia has enough cash to make up the shortfall. So perhaps that was part of Mr. Biden's agenda, in addition, as suggested, to encourage the Saudis to pump more oil. But if the Saudis plan to buy more treasury bills, that was not necessarily communicated in any press release. And keep in mind as well that Saudi investors invest heavily in US corporations, in Fox News and Apple Computer, and just about every major US corporation. Perhaps Mr. Biden wants them to pump more cash into Wall Street. But again, if that resulted, it was not part of a press release.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening with Russia now, because as much as Mr. Biden, the president, made his Middle East trip, so did the president of Russia made a trip to Iran to meet with leadership of Turkey. Talk to us a little bit about that trip, Doc.
Well, ostensibly, the reason for this visit of Mr. Putin to Tehran was because of the reality that both Iran and Russia are propping up the regime in Syria. You might have noted as well that President Erdogan of Turkey is at this particular three-way meeting as well. Although I dare say that inevitably the question of Ukraine will emerge, because the Russians supposedly want to purchase some drones from the Iranians. The Iranians have managed to master drone technology. These are these pilotless aircraft that are used to surveil the battlefield, oftentimes even used to launch missiles. I should also mention that Mr. Biden was being encouraged in Israel to attack Iran, as noted, because of its nuclear program. I dare say that in light of those threats, you can imagine that the leader of Iran and the leader of Russia were conferring with regard to their mutual antagonists, speaking of Washington. I think the problem for the United States right now is that it's overstretched. It's pouring billions into Ukraine. It's threatening to wage war against Iran. You have US battleships challenging Chinese vessels in the South China Sea. Even for a Pentagon that spends almost $1 trillion annually on military materiel, these challenges from Russia, Iran, and China might be a bridge too far. And Mr. Biden, if he is not careful, will be involved in the destabilization of his presidency.
The other part about that is also that Russia and Iran are both struggling under the sanctions that were imposed by the West. Considering where we are in terms of this war between Russia and Ukraine, how do you think? Do you think that this will actually help Russia to build more alliances in a very key place, in a very strategic manner, because of the level of dissatisfaction that both Iran and Russia has for America?
Well, it's not only Iran that will probably be an ally of Russia. It's not only China. It's not only India.
Wow.
As is well known, a number of African countries are rather lukewarm with regard to the sanctions against Russia in light of the Ukrainian intervention. And keep in mind that the Europeans are becoming wobbly by the day. And it's understandable, because already there's a real threat that Russians will turn off the natural gas tap with regard to Germany. And there are already advice coming from Berlin that people should perhaps use less air conditioning, that perhaps they should shower together. There's a real worry about what's going to happen this winter with regard to the prospect of cold temperatures. You saw that Mr. Biden's comrade in Ukraine, speaking of Boris Johnson in London, was just forced out of office. His other comrade, speaking of Prime Minister Draghi of Italy, is trying to resign. And there is a strong pro-Russia lobby in Italy as well. So there is a real danger that if Mr. Biden is not careful, that this whole Ukrainian enterprise will come apart at the seams, and that may shed light on the latest news out of Ukraine, which is that Mr. Zelensky, the president, is engaging in a purge. You usually don't engage in a purge in the middle of a war unless, as the former U.S. New York Knicks star Michael Ray Richardson used to say, unless the ship be sinking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got a few moments left with you, Doc, and I wanted to give you an opportunity because as we talk looking at about what's happening across the waters, things here domestically aren't looking too strong either. And I wanted to talk a little bit, and we haven't had a chance to really, promote the work that you're doing, your scholarship and your continued work and research on looking at the history of this country and the impact that it has on the present moment. You put out a book, and I want to make sure that folks understand how serious of a book this really is. You put out a book that talks about the larger issue of the counter-revolution of 1836. This is the title of the book. The Counter-Revolution of 1836, Texas Slavery and Jim Crow, and the Roots of U.S. Fascism. Take a look at this, folks. And the one thing that I appreciate about you and so many other historians and scholars is it goes back to the source of how we got here. You know, we throw around words like socialism, democracy, fascism, but you really explain what we're seeing in this current climate at this moment in this country. It has its roots. Talk to us a little bit about this book, Doc.
Well, first of all, in terms of the current moment, I'm sure you're following the January 6 hearings, where the recent revelation is that Mr. Trump was willing to collaborate with neo-Nazis on January 6, 2021, in a failed attempt to prevent the coming to power of Mr. Biden. This came as a shock and surprise to many who are not familiar with U.S. history, because if you look at the length of U.S. history, going back to the 19th century, you will find something that will not come as a surprise to many of your Black viewers and listeners, which is that there was a kind of fascism visited upon Black people in the 19th century. I'm talking about slavery, then Jim Crow. At the same time, the Euro-American population was generally exempt from that kind of horror. And so what's happening now is that there is a convergence. That is to say, with the Trump base, 75 million strong, riled up by Agent Orange, the plan now appears to be to extend what was extended to the Black community in the 19th century to extend it to the whole country. And there's a further message to the Black community in this book, because I spent a lot of time in these pages talking about Native American histories. I'm speaking to you now from Southeast Texas, and about 150 years ago, this part of North America was teeming with thousands and thousands of Comanches and other Native Americans. Now they're largely gone. And my message to the Black community is that if we're not careful, we'll be the Comanches of the 21st century. And that is something rather gruesome and ghastly and grim to contemplate.
So how do we, and as we wrap up this part of the discussion, Doc, how do we get to a place that we can kind of penetrate through all of the barriers and the challenges of seeing it? Because again, this is U.S. history. This is not just Black history. This is U.S. history that you're pointing out. And it seems like with given all of these barriers in terms of the partisan politics, and given all the barriers in terms of us not wanting to even learn or be aware of the full picture of history, we're kind of at a selective history at this point. How do we break that down so we can get to an understanding of seeing the big picture that, you know what, it's not just Black people that are at risk here. The whole state of the United States government, the United States of America, is at risk here. How do we get that message out, considering all of the divisions that we're currently in?
Well, I think it should start with our organizations. As we speak, the NAACP is having its 113th convention in Atlantic City, New Jersey. For about 70 years now, the NAACP has steered clear of U.S. foreign policy, the issue that's a staple on the culture, an issue that's a staple in terms of our discussions. If you do not understand foreign policy, you cannot understand the abolition of slavery. If you do not understand foreign policy, you cannot understand the retreat and erosion of Jim Crow. I think we need to encourage our brothers and sisters in the NAACP to engage more at their conventions with foreign policy. For example, they could have invited representatives from the embassies in Washington, D.C. To drive up to Atlantic City. That is to say, the embassies of South Africa, Ethiopia, Jamaica, Barbados, etc., because we're going to have to internationalize the struggle. Because if you just look domestically, with 75 million strong voting for Mr. Trump just a few years ago, and willing to countenance his violation of the law, willing to countenance his attempted overthrow of the U.S. government in an attempted coup d'etat, we're in very serious trouble unless we change the game. And I'm not sure if our leaders and organizations are willing to recognize that just filing lawsuits when the Republicans control the courts just won't cut it.
We don't have enough time to certainly talk about this, but I would love to go further into that discussion, Dr. Horn, with you. Maybe sometime next week we can bring you back on, because I think that that is an important part of the discussion, to internationalize the struggle. And, you know, I can remember seeing images from when the old Final Call newspaper and in other places where they had two black men, you know, crossing with the hands grasping one another. And how important that really is, because I know that there's a huge disconnect. It's like we're not tapping into that untapped resource of our international brothers and sisters who can really help us. And I think part of that is because of the culture and some of the personal experiences that Black people in this country, we look across the waters and say, oh, they're trying to take our jobs, or oh, they're trying to do this, or you know what I mean? And it really kind of muddles the discussion around the fact that if we, as you said, if we don't internationalize our struggle, we're going to be in much bigger trouble than we imagine. And we need support outside of the boundaries of the United States of America to keep us afloat at this time, because I'm becoming more of a critic in this regard, Doc. If America can't feed, quote unquote, the European population, how do you expect it to feed us? And I'm speaking of those who are a part of the minority population of this country, right? If it can't feed the majority, how can you expect to feed the minority? And so we're at a very, very critical point, and I would love to have that conversation with you some more. So I know time is of the essence today, but I appreciate your time. Again, Keenan, let's show the book for Dr. Gerald Horn. The book is called, folks, take a look, The Counter-Revolution of 1836, Texas Slavery and Jim Crow, and the Roots of U.S. Fascism. Dr. Horn, I'm assuming you can get the book wherever books are sold, on Amazon and in other places, sir. But I want to make sure that we give you the necessary love, flowers, and support for the great work you continue to do. Thank you so much for your time, Doc. We look forward to talking to you next week.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's continue the conversation, man. Oh, man, I got a good one for you, folks. Let's talk about where we are with this situation in the politics realm, to run or not to run. I'm going to break down the numbers. I'm going to bring in my culture crew, Lise Winnie, Iman Heath, and let's talk about whether 2024 will be a game-changing year for both the Democratic and Republican parties. We'll have that conversation up next, so stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
You dig?
All right, folks, let's talk about where we are in the state of the country. Now, 2024 is just fastly approaching, and many people are wondering where we're going to be. You know, this isn't a major election cycle that we're currently in this year, but people are looking to see if there's going to be a changing of the tide come 2024. And guess what? According to the latest data and statistics, I don't know. I don't know what to say, folks. The latest data and statistics shows that there is not going to be, there will be a big change coming through the White House. Let me just bring in my culture crew. Lise Winnie, we got Iman Heath. Lise Winnie is the host of Millennials Anonymous podcast. And then Iman Heath is an activist and entrepreneur. Ladies, it's always good to have you both on here. I want to break this number down to you, and y'all tell me how you feel about this, because right now, 2024 is a big question mark. Here's where we are in terms of just where we are. Look, the question I'm posing is to run or not to run. According to a new poll, check this out. Keenan, let's post this first quote, brother. According to a new poll, and this is from The Hill, majorities of new polls say that Biden and Trump should not run again in 2024. The majority of voters say President Biden and former President Trump should not make White House bids in 2024. And this is according to a new Politico Morning Consult poll. For Trump, 48% of voters say he should definitely not run again, while 13% say he probably should not, according to the poll. Now, slightly more voters overall are against Biden running for office again, with 46% saying he should definitely not run again, while 18% say he probably should not. All right, Lise, I'm going to start with you with this one. First thing, why is Lise's face like that? Her face looks like she is not surprised, nor impressed, nor anything. Lise, what do you make of this? Because these are the two, I would say, the two giants of the party that people have been looking to try to figure things out, to move this country along. And guess what? These two older white males seems to not be the answer. Are we looking at a game-changing moment for 2024? Should we expect that?
I don't think we're looking at a game-changing moment, but this is expected. When you look at all of the things that have happened with Trump and all of the groundbreaking things we've heard out of January 6th committee hearings, especially when we're hearing about him being how involved he was, and now the Secret Service text messages are going to be released, and it's getting harder and harder for the Trumpettes to ignore the fact that Trump was involved with this insurrection. There was even a whole documentary which I watched on Discovery Plus that really shows how much they actually knew. So it's getting harder for them to distance themselves. And they have better candidates that could potentially run. So you have Ron DeSantis in Florida. Even Tucker Carlson is now talking about potentially running. So they have other options. Trump is still the front runner, though, in the Republican Party. He's the kingmaker. If he knights you, you will probably win in most cases. Now, there's been some cases where this isn't true, but in most cases it is. When it comes to Biden, the economy, which I've been talking about for the longest time, has been the problem. People are hurting. They feel it. Like, it's very hard for you to ignore the fact that things don't cost the same as they did last year. That's going to be very hard. And plus, Biden is, I'm not being an ageist, but he's older. I never thought we would see a second term from him. I don't know if we will. I think we're going to start to see some of the same names, which saddens me, kind of run over again. I think we're going to see the same bid from Bernie Sanders. I think Elizabeth Warren. These are some of the people that they're talking about. Amy Klobuchar is going to come back. We're going to hear this new names coming out. Gavin Newsom, your governor. We're going to hear that start to reemerge. But I honestly don't think we will see either one of them in the end. I don't think Trump wants to lose, and I think Joe Biden is going to be Jimmy Carter.
He's going to be like Jimmy Carter. And you know what, Iman, when we look at the legacy of Jimmy Carter, he has a stronger legacy once he got out of office than he did in office. One of the big Achilles heels, of course, for Jimmy Carter's administration was, guess what? High gas prices, right? So now we're in an inflation right now, and people, and I would agree with you on that, Lise, that people are looking for the president for relief, and we're just not getting any type of relief. And to add to that, Iman, we already know student loan debt, voting rights, the things that we have been talking about here on this show, Brother Roland's been talking about on his show and other spaces, just not being met. Do you think that this is the end for President Biden coming into 2024?
I'm glad you asked me that, Farajii. I would like to go to a tweet, and I quote, this is from President Joe Biden. Gas prices have been dropping for 34 days straight, about 50 cents a gallon. That saves the average driver about $25 a month. I know those extra dollars and cents mean something. It's breathing room. And we're not done working to get prices even lower. I don't know what the hell kind of breathing Biden does. I don't know if he has asthma. I don't know if his lungs have an issue. But $25, that's less than $1 a day a month. So not only do you constantly show how disconnected you are from people who vote for you, $25, and he continues to show how it's the promises he made and the relief that he says that we can get or he's trying to work on just cannot be met. Chicken nuggets are $12 at McDonald's. The pack of chicken at the market went from $14, I want to say 3 months ago, to now 22 or 23. You don't have formula for babies. That's still a issue that has gotten quiet. Like it's no point, and it's on his image is only getting worse.
And I think Democrats do a very hard. Well, not even just Democrats, politicians, because inflation is something that happens in every society. Like you need stuff to rise in order to create wealth. I think the issue is that we are under the impression that the president of the United States somehow can fix inflation. Right. He cannot. So
of course he can't fix it. However, don't throw out promises.
No, but that's kind of where I'm going. within politics, we do need to get away from this dream where they sell us a dream because that's what we want to hear. And we need to hear real facts. And I think sometimes they don't know if the American populace can handle the truth. And I think you need to just tell us the truth. This is what it is, and this is what we can do. But they have a very hard time of doing that. And that's why people don't trust politicians.
Well, it's like Lise and Iman, it's like opium. It's like you want to keep drugging the people with gestures of, you want us to kind of stay high off of this thinking and this story or this narrative that everything is going well. You know what I'm saying? Like if the government, and this is what I say, and I think this is a two-way street to your point, Lise. If we stop expecting for every time the president or the vice president or any political official to always give us good news when they open their mouths, if we stop creating that expectation on them and just say, give me the truth, then I think that will help to shift the culture and in the relationship between political leaders and constituents, right? Because we want to always being told, and I say this, and I know some people disagree, but I think subconsciously we love being lied to. We live, and I'm saying this as personally,
feel comfortable.
We don't want to feel uncomfortable. Nobody wants to hear the president of the United States, quote unquote, the greatest role that any man or woman can be in this day and time, the highest seat in the world, right? And we're pumping out all of this stuff about American exceptionalism and all this stuff. America's got everything on lock. America's so great. America's number one. And none of this stuff is true. I mean, and I'm not saying this because I'm a hater. I'm saying, look at the data. America's not number one in education. We're not number one in social justice. We're not number one in humanitarian efforts. I mean, we do have we're close to number one in technology and some scientific advancement. But nobody wants to hear the president say, hey guys, the economy is falling apart. Or, hey guys, I really don't have a plan for public safety. Or, hey guys, nobody wants to hear that.
No, I mean, we definitely don't want to hear you don't have no plans. Like, what was you doing? Like, you had a whole lot of time to figure this out.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I will say this, like, we're in a capitalist society. So yes, if we were in a socialist society or communist society, he would have way more control over that. But we're in capitalism. So there's not a lot that the government can do about that. The issue is, I think, that not just understanding that if we buy more, they're going to raise more prices. So it's a lot of things that go into inflation. And I think that the Biden administration, because they keep kind of coming out with this, we're going to do this and we're doing that. And people are like, wait, I don't have any money. I'm not seeing this. I think they need to do a better job of explaining exactly what's happening. A lot of people don't understand what the Federal Reserve is. They don't even know how it works. Like, you have to kind of like dumb it down. And I think the Democrats do a very terrible job at explaining policy, at explaining what's actually going on. You have to explain it to the American public so that they actually understand what is going on and how it impacts them.
Yeah, and I think that's the big part. Now, here's the other thing. The other caveat is last week, President Biden put it out there that Democrats want him to run. Did y'all see that? If you missed it last week, he
wants him to run. He is the Democrat. He is.
Telling this man who's I'm not the numbers don't even add up. The math isn't mathing.
Hey, look.
Who told him that?
The man said that Democrats want him to run. He said 2024 doubts, Democrats want me to run. He went as far as to even say that 92% of Democrats want him to run. 92%.
Where did he find the info?
So I don't know what poll he looked at, what data he really reviewed, but the point is again, I get it. You don't want to come across as being a lame duck president. I understand. This is the big hoorah for the end of his time in public service. I get that.
like not just president in general.
In general, in public service. I mean, he done that.
No, in life. He like
no. Like take a vacation, Mr. President.
This isn't the goal. No, I mean he's in his golden years. So
that's what I'm saying.
He's coming,
right.
He's up there in age.
Right.
I don't know where he got that from. Maybe because when they do the pollings, it's usually landlines, and the people that have landlines are old people, and they like, oh, hey, Joe, I remember you. Like, I don't know if maybe that's how he got there. But my thing is this. I don't think he will. I think you're right, Farajii. I think this is them just trying to buy time until they can find a good some good Democratic candidates or at least an option, a pathway, because Kamala is attached to Joe. So is she going to be the front runner? Because now with the economy, they're going to look at Kamala. No. Who do they have? And I think that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to buy.
I would agree with you. I think it's a political strategy. He's trying to buy time. I think that he doesn't want to rock the boat too much, because then it looks like instability at the top, right? So you don't want to create panic in that sense, right? But I do think that it forces people to ask the question, like, what do we really want? On the other side of it too, and no, I'm trying to find this. Okay, so President Trump has been losing support. Mm-hmm. He's lost support. There was a poll that was done with him. Check this out, folks. This is from the New York Times. Half of GOP voters ready to leave Trump behind. Half. Let me break down the numbers. Keenan, let's post those. Let's post the first quote, bro. He talked about a clear majority of primary voters under 35 years old, 64%, as well as 65% of those with at least a college degree, which is a leading indicator of political preferences inside the donor class, told pollsters they would vote against Mr. Trump in a presidential primary. So he's losing young people, and he's losing college-educated folks, right? That's one thing. The greatest threat, this is the other part about this poll, and Keenan, throw this other quote up there, bro. The greatest threat, they said, to usurp Mr. Trump within the party is Governor Ron DeSantis. You mentioned that, Lise, who was the second choice with 25%, and the only other contender with double-digit support. Among primary voters, Mr. DeSantis was the top choice of younger Republicans, those with a college degree, and those who said they voted for President Biden in 2020. Now, the other part of this is, while about 1/4 of Republicans say they didn't know enough to have an opinion about Mr. DeSantis, he was well-liked by those who did. Among those who voted for Mr. Trump in 2020, 44% said they had a very favorable opinion of Mr. DeSantis, similar to the 46% who said the same about Mr. Trump. So, and look, my guy who comes on here, Hassan, Mr. Politics Giordano, he said Ron DeSantis is President Trump 2.0. He's worse. If you live in the state of Florida, you know the type of policies that are coming from Tallahassee. And so, it's just the fact that we might be seeing that. But let me tell you, if you know anything about Trump, and I think we see how Trump moves, Iman, Trump will like you until you become a threat to his power.
As long as he stays in Trump's good favor, Trump will support him.
Trump is not backing down.
At all.
He's not going to back down. If he comes out of this January 6th situation, if there isn't any type of repercussions, and if there isn't, I will be totally blown away. But if there isn't any real repercussions and he can move forward, if they put up Ron DeSantis, Trump is going to cut him off at the knees.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. He's a threat.
Going to be his greatest friend, and he's going to be his best friend now and his greatest foe down the road. He's going
just in case he can't get on the ballot. Oh yeah, he'll support.
He's done.
Yep. Yeah, but until then, he's the fresher face of Trump. That's it. It's going to be the same president, like I said, but worse. It's repetitive. The only way, like Lee said, I don't think it's going to be a game changer in 2024. I don't, unless people, which in history shows we haven't. It's like when Republicans piss Democrats off, the Democrats go run to the Republicans and vice versa. It's going to be the same party. It's going to be the same situation. they just bounce the ball back and forth between who pissed off the other versus the next person. That's it.
Yeah, that's how people vote. We don't vote for anything. We vote against something. And that is how people vote. They've always done that. We've always done it. And that's why we don't get anything done. I will also say that with Ron DeSantis, and the reason why I think a lot of young people, and Ron DeSantis has made himself known nationally. The things that he's passing in Florida make national headlines. Why? Because he wants to run for president. Absolutely. So now you're hearing about him. He's the only state that has police department that is specific for voter fraud. Nowhere else is doing that except for in Florida. Like, you're seeing him don't say gay bill. These are the things that he's doing in order to make national headlines. He is doing all the dog whistles for the people who want Trump. But Ron DeSantis, to me, if you are not a Republican, you should be concerned, because Trump was so incompetent. He couldn't get anything accomplished. He didn't listen to anyone. Ron DeSantis will get stuff done. So if you don't want Trump, you really don't want DeSantis. Yeah. So this is something that if he gets on the ballot and he wins the nomination, y'all should watch out.
We should all watch out. Let's go to, let's just take a couple of comments very quickly from our watchers, the Culture Crew online folks. Let me check in with Lenore. Lenore, you checked in and you said Biden definitely needs to sit his old ass down and take a nap. Wow. He hasn't done anything he promised on the campaign trail. We need a progressive for president. I would have hoped that we would be able to get a progressive. I know we don't like to talk about it, but I think the ideas that Bernie Sanders has always advocated need to be really considered. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm going to keep it real.
We let Bernie.
Let's stop acting like Bernie Sanders is your crazy old uncle at the family reunion that don't know what the hell he's talking about.
No, but Bernie Sanders has been there, civil rights. He's really been doing this his entire career, right. Really with the wealth gap. And he's been doing this the entire time. My issue is he's still an older white man. We need some new.
You know what? And I get that part. I get that part. And I'm not saying that you got to be some crazy Democratic, progressive. I'm just saying you can look. An idea is an idea regardless of who promotes it or not, right? Bernie Sanders has played a huge role in pushing this country into a more progressive state. Okay. What I hate, though, is that people act like his ideas don't have full merit, as if what we're seeing from the traditional Democrats, Republican, like they always say, it's the same conversation. Like if this country is talking about getting to a better place and to a newer space, then I think we need to look at all ideas and not just to the same ones, go back to the same wells that we've always gone to. We need to get some fresh water up in this space. All right, let's go to Mike. Mike V, you checked in. You said Elizabeth Warren, no. Deval Patrick, yes. Deval Patrick was the governor of Massachusetts, the black man out of Massachusetts. I don't know. I got to check in with Deval and see. I would have to check up on.
I would hope black people don't vote for someone again just because of color of their skin. I hope we fall for that again.
Let me tell you something.
I really hope we don't.
Let me tell you something. That identity politics will get us in a cluster.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of seeing it. If it's not about principles, if it's not about innovative ideas, I'm not worrying about, I just can't keep doing the black on black thing, because there are black people. Right. I come from a black city that with black democratic leadership that has been under tremendous peril and tragedy for the past 40 years.
Consistently.
Under black people. So let's not act like black people, and we can go back and forth like, man, black Democrats, and I get that. I'm talking about within the Democratic Party. I'm talking about new ideas. That's what I'm saying.
But in order to do that, we need new people. That's my thing with Bernie Sanders. I don't have anything wrong with Bernie Sanders. If you are, a democratic socialist like he is, great. But what I'm saying is we need new people. Even
that's
Bernie
all. Yeah, I agree
Sanders
with you.
Is older. Like
I agree with you. But here's the other thing, Lise. Here's the other thing, Lise. The country has to be open-minded to not look at the name and to look at the principles and the ideas. The new people, there are a lot of new people that run, but guess what? We don't give them a hand.
Because it doesn't sound familiar.
Because they don't sound familiar.
Yeah, we're not going to go for it.
Let's just say it. We're in a capitalist society. It's the money. They don't have the money to put out the commercials. They don't have the money to do the ads. They don't have the staff. They don't have
Walmart not backing them. Home Depot not backing them.
They don't
Ones
have
with the deep pockets are not supporting them. Exactly.
Right.
It's not cool. Let me go to Shalinda. Let me see. Shalinda said, I was doing in the talk about budget prices and inflation. Shalinda said, I was thinking about going vegan. How much is chicken nuggets again?
No, sis, listen, going vegan is even more expensive.
Yes, vegan food is not cheap.
To be healthy than it is.
I'm telling you, America will make you want to stay fat.
Oh,
okay?
Yeah. Give me a cheeseburger at this point.
Let me tell you something. It's an Andre Rogers, and I think this is a new culture crew member. Andre, thank you. You said, OMG, thank you for the segment. Y'all candid is something so refreshing and talking about Biden in 2023. I have no doubt that Biden will be primaried if he chooses to run again. I love how you said primaried. I'm gonna have to start using that in my vernacular. If he gets primaried and if he chooses to run again, and Andre, thank you so much for checking in. I think that I hope not. I really hope not. That's what I'm saying. Like from now until 2024, and folks, you really think about it, we only have about a year, maybe a year and a half before we're starting to see some people's names start to pop up for that race. But I hope we just don't primary somebody just cause. I mean, I'm personally tired of that on a local level and even on a state level, but on a federal level, it's like, no, we can't do it no more. Damon, you checked in. You said, my man Damon Blissett, Damon, you said they may not want Trump, but they want his ideology.
Yep, because Trump's image has been damaged so much.
Yeah,
they just want to take the same mindset, put it in a different person, and let them run. That's it. It's repetitive, Farajii.
Absolutely. Willie Frazier, my man Willie, checking in once again. Abel Damon, thank you so much, sir. Love and appreciate your support. Willie, you said if DeSantis gets the nod, the war on black culture is on.
The war on black culture been on. What are we talking about? It been on. It's just gonna hopefully add more fuel to our fire, and we can get up off our asses. But it's been a war on us since day one. Huh? What you mean, Willie?
It has been on, but I think that on a national level, and I know how we like to get real pumped up as we close this part out, folks. I know how we like to get real pumped up, Lisa and Iman. Like we be like, no, if so and so gets elected, man, it's all on. I remember when Trump ran for office. Like, man, if Trump win, I'm moving to Canada. If Trump win, we're doing this, we're doing that.
That morning when he got elected,
how many people went to Canada, Lisa? How many people?
Like
five. How many people jumped ship from the American ship, Iman? Because I ain't seen no mass exodus from America.
No.
From black people. Here's the problem. Here's the problem on that. Let's not talk all that, we go bop, bop, bop. Yeah, I'm going to do this. Bop, bop, bop. No, let's have a strategy. Let's have a real strategy. There are, and Dr. Horn said something. He said that black organizations, and he talked about the NAACP, but we look across the board. He said we do not internationalize our struggle. We don't have a strategy beyond just telling black folks to vote. What's the alternative strategy, especially for the three of us? I mean, look, the three of us, we're conscious, we're progressive. We're conservative on some things, we're liberal on other things. What's the strategy to engage us beyond just telling us to vote? What's the strategy to engage us in a way where we are producing political leaders? That way we don't have to get into all of this stuff. Like, what's the strategy of making sure that anybody that may not have the big name and the big money can still get elected? What's the strategy?
I think it's more local. I think we need to localize, because I know we're talking about going international, but before you can even do that, have to be locally sound. Like you have to have that together in order to even get there. And I don't think we're there yet because we don't want to do. Like we vote and then it's like set it and forget it. And we don't hold them accountable. We don't do anything in our own communities. Like you can actually create organizations in your own community. You can feed the homeless. You can clean your community. You can do all of these things, but we don't.
Absolutely. So, we're going to put this on pause just for a quick moment because, today is election day in the great state of Maryland, governor's race. We got congressional races. We got that Baltimore City State's attorney race. We're going to have a conversation towards the end of today's show. But we're going to take a quick pause. When we come back, we're going to just shift gears a little bit, talking about hip hop. We're going to check in with culture analyst and author Civ Jones to talk about her new book, 7 Lessons That Hip Hop Taught Me That School Didn't. We'll have that conversation. So stay with us, folks. That discussion is coming up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, if you missed the first hour of the show, you missed a very, very good hour. And don't worry about it. You can always go back and check out the replays. As we checked in with Dr. Gerald Horn, professor of race and African-American history from the University of Houston, checked in with us to talk about everything from the Biden Middle East trip, as well as the latest with Russia, and talking about his own book that is out on sale right now. So make sure y'all check that out, as well as our discussion that we just had about President Biden and President Trump possibly running again, and how many polls are saying no, no, no. All right, we're going to just switch gears now and have a discussion with new author and culture analyst Civ Jones, who has created a book called 7 Lessons That Hip Hop Has Taught Me That School Didn't. Now, we are so happy to have a conversation about the power of hip hop, music, and culture with Civ Jones. Civ, thank you so much for checking in. How are you this afternoon?
I am doing well. What's up, Farajii? We done grown up, haven't we?
Yo. I'm old, Civ. Let me stop.
You don't look it. You don't look it. We still millennials. We the OG millennials.
Oh, yes.
OG.
I hear that. All right. So look, I got you on. We're going to talk to you for a few moments, but I got to bring back my culture crew.
Absolutely.
His host of Millennials Anonymous podcast. And we also joined by Iman Heath, who is an activist and entrepreneur. 3 dynamic, powerful Black women. I love having these conversations. But first and foremost, Civ, you wrote this book, 7 Lessons That Hip Hop Taught Me That School Didn't. First, I remember, and Civ and I used to work together, folks, when we worked at Radio 1.
Radio 1, yeah.
Radio 1, big shout out to Miss Kathy Hughes, right?
Yes.
For the great leadership there. But Civ and I worked, and I remember this was years ago, Civ. You mentioned, hey, Farajii, I'm working on this book. And I was like, okay, all right, that's what's up right there. And it was years. And to have this conversation with you about your book, that's you about to do this big book signing this week, is absolutely amazing. You stayed consistent to the vision. Talk to us about why you decided to write this book. What does this book mean for you?
Oh man, this is my love letter to hip hop culture. And I decided to write this book. So as you know, I used to, I was we did that the show with Dr. Kathy Hughes, who put us together, who was like she's just a thought leader before her time, and she had put our show together. And before that, if you remember, I was working on Magic 95.9. And at that moment, that's when the Freddie Gray situation popped off and the whole uprising from the community. And I don't know if you knew this, but I had got on the air and I had said something really, really bad against the police. And so the advertisers basically went to the program director at the time, and he snatched me off of the air. And so at that moment, I never thought that I would do radio again. And at that moment, at this time, I was doing really well in my career. I was doing remotes. I had endorsements. And when they snatched me off, I had nothing to show for my time being on the air. So I was like, if I ever get on radio again or, get into the media or anything like that, I'm going to make sure that I have something to a product that I can call my own. And that's what's the inspiration behind this book. I took, everything that I was doing in the hip hop industry in Baltimore, from events to blogging to being a consultant, and I put all that knowledge into this book because that's what I'm not a writer, I just, I'm very opinionated. So I just decided to put my opinions on paper, and this is what we have.
No, that's awesome. And I think that, and I'm starting to see like this trend, Civ, and Lisa and Iman, please jump in if you ladies are seeing the same thing. But I'm starting to see this trend, especially among our age group, where we're saying, you know what, this culture is too important for us to not put it on paper or to put it in a space where it will never be forgotten. That now we're seeing more and more books, we're seeing more and more discussions. I'm even seeing college courses around hip hop. Why is it so important for us to, and I'm starting with you on this, Civ, why is it so important for us to do our best to memorialize the power of hip hop culture and expression?
Because if we don't, years from now, they're going to believe that a white boy from Omaha created hip hop and it started in Europe. You know what I mean? If we have to control our narrative. And what I see is that they are trying to push the blacks out, right? You have, and there's nothing wrong, because at the end of the day, hip hop is like a rainbow coalition. You have the Spanish, the Mexican, the Asians, all of us embrace this culture. It's one of the most global entities, genres, that I think that is like the universal connector, right? But it came from us here in America. Women were always apart, and that's another thing. They always try to get the, not give representation, or don't think that women was a part of it. Yes, we were, just like we were a part of the civil rights movement. We were in these rooms, we were at these parties, we was on the mics, you know what I'm saying? But there's so many times our representation gets lost in the sauce. So that's one of the reasons why I know, right now, hip hop and rap music, where we are right now, can be very detrimental to the community, but it's still ours, and we still have to control the narrative, and we have to take it back, because like I said in the beginning, we created it, just like pop, just like blues, jazz. We see what happened to those genres that came from us, right? And we're actually living in that moment, seeing what happened to that genre happen to hip hop, and we can't allow that to happen.
I love that. Iman, Lise, what's your take on that, on memorializing, to really doing our part to to record and to make sure that people don't forget that there are some great positive elements of hip hop expression culture that we need to keep in mind. Lisa, I'll start with you on that one, sis.
I think that absolutely we need to make sure that people know where it started from. This is why history matters, because if we don't have history, you can make up whatever it is that you want, and then people will actually believe it. Yeah. Again, when you look at where hip hop actually started, it was telling the stories of the times. It actually is a chronological history of what happened in the 80s and the 90s and into the 2000s. Like, you actually can follow those stories, and they were actually saying something. It meant something, and look what it created. And I think that we have seen an evolution of so many people who started in hip hop who are now billionaires. This is something that we do want to tell our children, that this is our culture. We created this, like we created rock and roll, even though they don't want to give us credit for that. And we do need to make sure that they know.
Like Siv said, I definitely agree that we need to document as much as possible, because eventually they will try to whitewash what we have done. Right. Hip hop has shaped and influenced a lot of things in culture within the Black community alone. Just from, I'll say, NWA. They helped push and shape a movement as far as civil rights in California, and then it went nationwide, in my opinion, for what I've studied and seen from them. So hip hop just in general has pushed a lot as far as for the Black community. And again, we would hate to have a whitewash. So it's very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Siv, let's talk about what are a couple of the lessons that you have learned as a result of being involved in the hip hop community locally and nationally, that school didn't. I can't believe, Siv, that school didn't teach you these things. I'm really.
Well, one of the lessons, number one, is social currency, and how well our social currency matters, and how hip hop artists were the first social influencers before the word even existed. Two, and I don't know if you cuss on your but I'm just gonna
Go ahead. We drop a few bombs there.
Okay, we thought, well, the power of the pussy. And I'm not just talking about sexual. I'm just talking about with women's role in hip hop. For me, the women rappers, and I'm trying to get away from this calling them femcs, because an MC is an MC. Don't matter if she's a woman or a man. But women rappers really came through and gave us a different look of what it meant to be a Black woman in the United States. Three, drugs run America, and just really understanding where drugs came from and how it infiltrated the Black community. Money tracks some money, how hip hop is a genre of entrepreneurs, and how you can pretty much become rich and famous and really do well for your children by getting rich off of your craft. Politics as usual. I mean, y'all, I know y'all talked about politics before I jumped in, but politics as usual. Hip hop, as Chuck D said, hip hop was the CNN for Black America. And we've been dealing with these issues from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s. And we're still dealing with the politics issue in Black America. And number five, oh man, hustle is a sport. Again, just the way that you hustle and the way that what you can create out of your own talent if you put your mind to it, right? Hip hop is one of those braggadocious genres that's like, hey, I came from the bottom. I came from nothing and made myself something. And then dropping jewels. In this last chapter, I deal with a lot with this last chapter. It was just so many different themes that I wanted to expound on, but I just didn't seem to fit. And that's basically like the white flight, and just how the white role in hip hop, and how you have these white artists come in and they utilize our slang, our style, but then when it comes to issues dealing with Black America, they become silent. And then also how it's demon time, like now everybody's this demon time, and how music and how hip hop is so spiritual, and to really check out the different components of what that music is, and how really spiritual, and how really the frequencies and the sounds of that and what it does to you. And so I really just really dive in deep, and I'm just really proud of some of the things and the themes that I've came up with.
let me just share what you said, and Lise and Iman jump in. But let me just say, that's dope. All those lessons are dope. You know what I'm saying? Like for real. Social currency, the spirituality. Because and here's why. This is why I appreciate when any work or there's any type of scholarly view of hip hop, because I think that we have often, and I'm talking about Black people, we have diminished the power of our own expression too many times, right? To the point where we don't really recognize us, like we're stepping on our own toes. That hip hop is one of those evolving cultures and expressions where it might be in this place today, but it can literally be in another space tomorrow, because it feeds off of the energy of the people. It feeds off of the energy of the moment, the circumstances, and the times that we live in. So things change. It's an ever evolving genre of music, right? So people might say, oh man, that trap music sound right now. You might got a 21 Savage, Lil Durk, and all of that class of artists coming in. But then when you start listening to those guys, they're still talking about the very things that you spoke on. They talk about loss. They talk about pain. They talk about mental health issues. They talk about, the lack of the lack of spirituality. And I think that we are so hard on ourselves, which is part of the reason why this show takes the perspective that it takes, because it's like we have to constantly reaffirm to Black people in particular that our expression is not a punishment. And Iman, I want to get your take on that. That people feel like, man, that since you don't like the music or like the expression at this moment, therefore all of it is trash.
And that's what I think. Besides our OG millennials, has to get out.
Come on, talk about them OG.
The sound right now is drill music. That's the hip hop sound everyone's going with, is drill music. It sounds, promotes, gang banging and all this other stuff. However, there is still a separate art from hip hop that we forget to recognize. Mulatto right now has this song called Pussy, and she talks about how the misogynistic ways against women, how the Supreme Court and them ruling that they control our body technically in that narrative. And Civ said, I believe you said, hustle is an art. That said one of the lessons you learned. When I say Biggie featuring Jay-Z, I love the dough, is like the battery in my back. When I wake up in the morning, I don't feel like getting up. When I say it touches me, I become a different kind of person when that track come on. I'm different right now, 695. But we have to understand that yes, this music, if we may not like it, it's just a moment, and that moment will grow. And there are also at this time, like I said, still conscious music you can listen to. You still have your Kendrick Lamar's, and I love Kendrick. When I say that has to be my favorite hip hop artist currently right now, but we got to have this mindset of, I'm tired of hearing this. The young people is just violent. It's way more hip hop than just what you're hearing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have to say with Kendrick, it takes me some time to digest Kendrick's music. He packs a lot in 16 bars. You feel what I'm saying? Like he packs a lot into his music. So when his album just dropped, I was like, all right, hold on. I need to set aside some time.
He speaks truth though. Like he puts a lot of things in your head that you don't normally think about.
Yeah.
He speaks truth. Like one of my favorite artists is Lupe Fiasco, right? A lot of people don't talk about Lupe. He's one of my favorite artists. But for me, as much as I love Lupe, I do know that Lupe can take you to the stars, man. Lupe can take you straight out into space. And his references, his metaphors, you'd be like, bruh, hold up. You know what I'm saying? And I think I'm a smart dude, but I listen to Lupe and I'm like, bro,
the rabbit hole gets dark.
You know what I'm saying? And look, I had a conversation with Nira the other day, and she was just like, the music, every artist speaks to a different mood, which I think, Civ, back to your point, like that is part of the power of the music that you have in one genre. You can, depending on whatever mood you're feeling, if you're feeling low, you can go to one artist. If you're feeling like, girl, we're gonna have a girls' night out, you're gonna throw on some Meg, you're gonna throw on some Cardi. If you feel like I want to get intellectual, let me listen to some Nas. If you feel like, yo, I'm feeling very hustler like tonight, I wanna show off, you put on some Jay. You know what I mean? Like in just one genre of music, you have all of these moods that are personified and expressed. And I think that's a very, very powerful force for us to look at. See, if then nothing of women on this particular panel, which I absolutely love. And I'm sure people are saying, but what about the message against women? Like the level of misogyny, the level of, where does that take women? And how do we do that? How do we make sure that women are not forgotten in this conversation?
Well, hip hop hasn't had its Me Too moment, right? Because it's so inundated with like misogynistic rhymes, right? So it hasn't had like it basically is a big Me Too moment. If you really get down to it and you talk to some of the women, I mean, just how I want to be an MC, but if I go into this producer's studio, he wants to sleep with me, So we haven't really had our moment, but we continue to still strive and strive and strive. And I know, and I love the newer generation of women MCs and women rappers is because they are doing something that the older generation didn't have the opportunity to do, and that's stand on their own. Because if you remember, it used to be a time where a woman rapper wouldn't be able to get on the microphone unless she was the first lady. She had to be the first lady of this. She was one, and there was a whole bunch of other different men around her, and they had to co-sign her. But what Cardi B did is she smashed that, right? She came in and she didn't have a whole bunch of male rappers around her. She didn't come from that first lady crew, right? And then she made way for Meg Thee Stallion to come through, and then your mulattoes, and then your Dream Dolls, and there's just so many other different Rhapsody. There's so Sha Rock, there's so many other different type of women rappers who are doing things, and they're standing on their own. But what I would say right now, and what the younger generation didn't have that I had, is that I had a balance, right? I came up in the Little Kim, Foxy Brown days, but I also had Lauryn Hill and Queen Latifah to balance that out, right? And I think right now they don't have that. They don't have, and I don't know if it's just the industry or just women realizing like, oh, shoot, this is the blueprint. Let me do this blueprint and then come out, right? I thought Mulatto was going to be that, but then when I see Mulatto started to cave into the plastic surgery, I was so hurt. I was like, you didn't even have to do all of that. Like, she did not have to, right? But I see that she is kind of getting back with that song Pussy, and she had a message in that song. I see her getting back to her lyrical proudness, and she's a lyricist. Like, the girl can actually rap. The girl has talent. But I was a little upset, and just not upset, but just sad that she felt like she had to go there.
Yeah. And I'm seeing this explosion of young women. I'm thinking of City Girls. I'm thinking I'm thinking of like Summer Walker. I'm thinking of like, you have these women, these younger women now who are just like shaping the context and the conversation around everything from women getting money to, intimate relationships. And I think it's such a powerful situation, right? Like City Girls, JT and Young Miami, they're just like, they're blowing up. But I'm wondering, and I think that point that you just made, Civ, is absolutely key. That where's the balance? And I think that's what a lot of people are really, that people really want that. People really want balance. It's like you can have all of the other stuff. You can have, cars and money and all of these things, but then there has to be a balance. And I'm wondering if we're not seeing the balance coming in from the mainstream distributors, the record companies and the major distribution channels, then how can someone find balance when it's not easily accessible? Because if you are locked in on a JT and Young Mining and City Girls vibe, you're not going to be locked in on. You're not going to check out, Moo Fresh. You're not going to check out, Rhapsody. You might not. You're not going to be locked in those spaces. So how can you get that balance?
Research, and it's unfortunate that we have to do the research, right? But if you want that type of artist, you have to go and find them. And it shouldn't be that way. It really shouldn't, but it just seems like the machine is behind a certain type of image right now. And that image is Gucci down, you know, it is behind a made up version of what a woman is supposed to be and look like. Hopefully we'll get to that day. I think that we are kind of changing the ties with the signing of like Glorilla and how she made that, like, I mean, I know that she has been rhyming for a long time, but when she made, and even though the song, you know, F and F is still kind of, you know, whatever, but the fact that she doesn't look like the typical big booty, heavily endowed, so hopefully she doesn't go there, you know, but it does take the industry to put out that type of, you have to put money behind it, or we as the consumers, have a big thing. We have to support it. Like it falls back on us, just like voting. You have these politics here, you have these politicians, but we have to vote. We have to support what we want to see. And not too many of us are supporting what we want to see, because I bet you if it was a lot of us supporting these type of artists, like your Kendricks and your J. Cole's, you will see more of this in far as with women rappers, but we don't support them.
And you know, one of the things, Siv, and I tell people this all the time, if you don't like the music that's coming from the big black station in wherever it's, you know, whether city or town that you're in, right? They actually have a public file where you can call up and you can basically file a complaint, and they have to take your complaint and they have to record it and register that complaint with the FCC. That if people knew that your complaint about the music is actually something that is recorded, then that will force the program directors, the program managers, to rethink the music that they play. But we don't understand the power of the voice in some of these spaces, right?
Some of us don't even know information like that.
Right. Yeah. And like Trump, he completely gutted the FCC. So there's not a lot of people in the FCC right now. But I agree with what Siv said so much, that yes, when we support, we actually do, as the consumer, we can dictate what is mainstream. But for whatever reason, it's more entertaining to see the glamour, sex. It's always been that way. Even when Kim came out, they put way more money behind Kim than a Latifah. Why? Because it was more entertaining. It got more eyeballs. Right. It's what sex sells. And I think that's what you want. And I'm also glad in your book that you do talk about the power of women in hip hop, like Sylvia Robinson, who is the mother of hip hop. And I don't think a lot of people understand that she really is the mother. Like it comes from a woman. A woman allowed this genre to be birthed.
Absolutely.
So we have to pay homage to her and to other women in hip hop behind the scenes, and artists like those Lauryn Hills and people that are creating this positive message.
And Lisa, Iman, and Siv give female artists the space to go across the gambit. I remember very quickly. I remember when Jill Scott started, you know, started putting out more sexual content in some of her music, and people were like, "Oh my, Jill Scott, there's a sexual side," and it's like, you see
what she did to that mic on stage?
Like Gilly from Philly.
But you know what I'm saying? But people act as if a woman can't have a ratchet, quote unquote, a ratchet side and a classy side. Like she can't be a sexual human being while at the same time being a conscious person.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think that we do have, and I'm saying that we as men included, we have to give women the space. If Lauryn Hill, and we always put her up as the queen of clean when it comes to like hip hop music, right? But if Lauryn Hill decided to put out something real ratchet, like she can write the ratchet stuff. I know she can, because if you could write the clean stuff, you could write the ratchet stuff.
Oh no!
So if she decided to put out the ratchet stuff for just, I don't care if she's talking about how she do it with her man. People will be like, "Oh my God!"
I think it's what Siv said. I think it's a balance, like just having that balance. Everybody's not all one thing,
right?
That's all I'm saying, and that's what I'm saying. It just essentially comes down to this is expression. So, I remember watching just, a couple of weeks ago, I watched the video Clout that Cardi did with Offset. And I was like, she doing all these provocative moves, but then I kept thinking, oh, that's her husband.
That's her husband, right?
A whole husband.
That's her husband.
A whole husband.
Not a half a husband.
A whole
husband.
That's her.
Like legally her husband.
Yes, that's her
She
husband.
got children with this dude. She built a life. She's committed to the dude, and so that's her husband. Like if her and her husband decide to do that, okay, then that's your husband. But we don't give space to people, for artists in particular, to just go and run the gambit of their expression. We like to keep artists in one place, in a place that's comfortable and safe. And I think that takes away from the artistry when we do that. Civ, I know that this is a powerful book, 7 Lessons That I Learned at School Didn't. Where can people buy this book and talk to us about your upcoming book signing?
Yeah, so it's available on Amazon. You go to Amazon. I got the Kindle version. You get the paperback, and you can also go to my website, which is civjones.com, and purchase the book there. And this Thursday on my Facebook Live, I'm gonna do it real simple because it's the 21st century, and I go come on my computer, and that's what's going to be happening. So I'm going to do a live book signing this Thursday at 7 p.m. on my Facebook channel, and I'll be signing autographed copies because I know several people have asked me about, they wanted to get an autographed copy. So I'll be signing autographed copies, and I'll also will be reading some excerpts from the book. So we're going to have a party. It's going to be a party online on my Facebook channel. That is Civ Jones. And again, the book is available for purchase right now. You just go to Amazon.com. You can either type in Civ Jones or 7 Lessons That Hip Hop Taught Me That School Didn't.
There it is right there. Civ Jones, culture analyst and author. Civ, thank you so much.
Appreciate you, Farajii.
You're welcome, and we appreciate the contribution. And more importantly, we thank you for being so good for the culture.
And appreciate your co-host. I'm so glad that you're surrounding yourself by strong, but just Black women.
We can be strong. We appreciate it.
It's strong, but we get that labeled on us so much.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate seeing the sisters represent. And Farajii, you have always been a host that made sure that the woman's voice was always represented in your whatever you've done. I mean, far as your radio days, far as your hosting days, you have always made sure that you had women behind you, and I appreciate you for that.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. And who my wife is?
Yes. Shout out to Nira. Hey, Nira.
My wife educates me. No, you gotta do it. Like, okay, all right, I got you. I'm right there. Civ Jones, thank you so much, Civ. We got to certainly bring you back on. But folks, if you want to get more information about the powerful book, 7 Lessons That Hip Hop Taught Me That School Didn't, make sure y'all go to her website at civjones.com, civjones.com, for her virtual book signing that's happening on Thursday of this week. You can sign up to be a part of that on her website and enjoy the conversation that she's going to have on Thursday. Civ, thank you again for your time. We truly appreciate you, Civ.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. Once we move forward, we're going to talk about the election in Maryland, the big 2 races, and some other political things that are happening as polls are still opened across the state of Maryland for many, many open slots in leadership and in government. We're going to talk about the implications of the Baltimore City State's Attorney's race, the governor's race, and so much more. So stay with us. That's happening as we move forward right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. We'll see you in a moment.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on that.
Hey, Black, I love y'all. I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
You dig?
All right, folks, as we close out today's show, again, and it is Election Day in the state of Maryland. Polls are still open across the state, won't close out until about 8 o'clock or so this evening. And as a result of that, there are some big candidates, big races rather, that will be decided by Maryland voters today. And I wanted to take a key in on a couple of these, the big races there. The one is the gubernatorial race, as there is a number of candidates that are running to be the top spot in the state of Maryland, as Governor Larry Hogan looks to end his tenure as a two-term Republican governor of a Democratic state. Let's bring the culture crew back in. Lise, Winnie, Iman, Heath. Lise and Iman, first and foremost, did y'all think that Governor Larry Hogan, now he's not a Trumper,
no.
But, he's not a Trumper. He has distinguished himself from being that. So that's a plus. But he, some people say that his record when it comes to the issues affecting Black people is
swept under the rug. It's disregarded. Eyes closed.
It's iffy. It's iffy. Like, the whole issue around HBCU issues, funding rather, police brutality, and just more. If you are from Baltimore, if you live in Baltimore, you know that the state of Maryland has this relationship with Baltimore City where we're considered to be like a stepchild.
You know how people say, people from Baltimore, when it comes to being a part of DMV, we're not a part of it, because that's how it's treated, as if Baltimore is
which is the absolute insanity.
But that's how that's how it feels.
Y'all want to come here for crabs. Y'all want to come to Baltimore for crabs. You want to come to Baltimore because the Ravens, the Ravens are popping more than the Redskins, the Washington football team. I don't know
what the Commanders.
Go around the corner to Preakness, around the corner from the hood.
Preakness. You want to come because it's lit in Baltimore, but then you treat like, oh no, Baltimore ain't this. No. We are the DMV.
Hello, drops mic. We are.
We are the DMV. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mom.
So, as far as Hogan, yeah, I definitely feel like when it comes to Baltimore City, it's always he points the finger a lot. You know, your mayor doesn't get this done. The mayor doesn't do this. The city is filthy. The city is this. The police this. The police that. It doesn't ever sound like it's a helping hand on olive branch to push or help Baltimore City progress any kind of way, rather than keep condemning our leaders, even though our Democratic leaders here in Baltimore City have not always led us correctly. Let's not always point a finger, like, help us out. If you see it's blood on our shoe, grab the shoe and wipe it off or something, rather than just keep pointing the finger. So I hope we do our job today and we select a candidate who will actually help. I'm saying the governor isn't the person to personally, we're going to help clean up Baltimore City, but at least help rather than keep pointing the finger.
Well, I hope so too. I hope people do come out in record numbers to support in this election cycle. This is actually a big election cycle, and Lise, you said it earlier. Politics is local. It has to start there. You're talking about changing any level of culture, any power dynamics. You need to go out and get engaged in your local elections. And for us, I think that's one of the key things. Governors' races matter. Mm-hmm. We see it all across the state. I'm convinced, Lise, states have more power than federal governments in a lot of cases at this point, because what we're seeing from the state level is one thing, but if it's not a consensus on the state level, if the governor is not with the program that the Biden-Harris administration is putting out, it's not going to happen in those states.
Agreed. I mean, the local government has more control over what happens to you day to day, what you actually feel day to day, because they make those local laws. Now, I will say, as far as the governor here, Larry Hogan, he actually is perhaps running for president. They say that there's some rumors that he might run on the Republican as a candidate for 2024. I don't know if that is true. I will say that I don't think he was the worst governor that we've ever had. I'm not completely upset with Larry Hogan. I think he could have done more, of course, in places like Baltimore and Charles County, which has a big opioid issue, and they don't have a lot of funding there. But I do think that overall he was able to, we're in like a surplus in Maryland. So they have extra money, which is crazy because the busing in Baltimore County, like they couldn't even get the children to school. Right. But we do have extra money here, nonetheless. Yeah. But when it comes to the candidates that we have, I think they have a lot of really promising candidates like Tom Perez, who was formerly the head of the Democratic National Committee. We also have Wes Moore, who is an author. He's actually been back. I don't know if he's been endorsed by Oprah.
Yes, he has been. He has been officially endorsed by Oprah, Congressman Kwesi Mfume. A number of high-profile individuals have endorsed Wes Moore. He is the black man with the black wife with the black children
that lives in Baltimore City.
And his
head is smooth. Like
his skin is smooth. His I don't know what type of facial. Right. Yes, sir. That's black skin right there.
Hey, Lise, don't do that. Don't do that. Because you know how people vote. They'd be like, well, I voted for him because his head is smooth.
Right. He clean. That's the clean.
Wes is clean. You like, nah, bro, you really clean. He's an army. He's a military man. He's a military veteran. His mom is an educator. I had a chance to actually interview his mom on my radio show at Morgan. She wrote this book about race in the classroom and in the school setting, and it was one of the most engaging conversations that I actually had as she talked about him raising him and how she raised him. He also, of course, is the author of the book of The Other Wes Moore, which got him in the radar of Oprah because he talked about how he had Wes Moore as his name. And then there was another black man who came from Baltimore who went in a completely different path, and how he befriended this other brother who had the same namesake. So he has a powerful story. John King, I think he was the Obama, he worked in the Obama administration, the former Department of Education official for the Obama administration. He's running for office. I think on the gubernatorial side, I think we see a more diversity. We don't see your quote unquote, white male that's going to be taking the lead. Maryland might be changing the game come tomorrow at this time, where we may have a black governor. And I'm saying the governor. We've had black lieutenant
nominee. We won't know.
Well, black nominees, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
I'm sorry. Primary. This is primary season. I'm going to get it all over with, please.
Listen, I said if we get one tomorrow, I'm definitely taking shots. I'm going out.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm celebrating.
You know what I'm saying? But Maryland is on the path of having a black governor, at least in this. If Wes Moore or John King pulls out a win among the voters today, so that will be very, very interesting to see. And I think it's time for a black governor. We've had lieutenant governors. We've had Michael Steele. We have right now Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford, who I know, but we never had a black governor in the state of Maryland. And one of the things that Wes Moore, like his running mate, is a woman. And so it will be interesting. It will be interesting to see how this pans out. So that's on the gubernatorial side. Now, the other big election that folks are looking at is the one relating to, and I had to get myself together on this election, folks, because this Baltimore City State's attorney. Our current city state's attorney is Marilyn Mosby, right? And you might remember, y'all right, remember Marilyn Mosby. She is the young black woman who really put herself out there on the national stage as being the ones that would prosecute the officers in the death of Freddie Gray. She was not able to get the prosecution that she wanted, but she became, for lack of a better word, a very high-profile state's attorney, where now she has kind of garnered this kind of like following and garnered this level of voters where people feel like by her being dynamic, she's young, she's black, and she's very passionate, that she has what it takes. She served 2 terms already, but this 3rd term, she is up against 2 individuals who actually ran against in the last election cycle.
You can't make this up.
Literally, I'm not joking, folks. Literally, 4 years ago, she ran against the same 2 guys. This is why black politics has to change, man. Literally, she ran against attorney Ivan Bates, who actually in this cycle looks to be ahead of her in fundraising efforts. And even though he didn't win the last time, because of the controversy around Marilyn Mosby and her personal finances and other personal issues, her competence in leading the state's attorney's office.
Now y'all know. Hold on, Farajii. Now
I'm laying it out for the people to understand the context of what they.
I feel it was a ploy to distract people from wanting to support her. But I'm going to leave my conspiracy theory alone. Go ahead.
Wait a minute. What was a ploy to distract her?
So they went through her financial files, something like that, and said she was using monies to buy properties elsewhere and things like that. And that happened around the same time. I believe it was, I'm about to get it confused.
Right.
The end of she was trying to prosecute someone or something. It slips my mind now. But it was the end of something that just happened. I'm gonna figure it out, and I'm gonna tell y'all next week.
All right. Well, let me just say this: she ran against 2 people: Ivan Bates, attorney Ivan Bates, a black man, and she's running against another attorney who actually his name is Tharu Vignarajan, and Tharu has his own level of controversy as he's been questioned because he was on tape trying to solicit sexual. What do they call that, please? What'd you say?
That's a favors.
Sexual favors. Another issue came up with him where he was once again caught on tape as he was pulled over by a Baltimore City police officer and late at 1 o'clock in the morning with an unknown female in the car who happened to run out of the car.
All right.
during this stop, and he told the police officer as an attorney that he needs to cut off his body cam. I'm not making this up, folks. I'm not going to lie to y'all about all of this stuff. And so Theroux he has actually ran for mayor, and he has ran for, this is his second attempt to run for state's attorney. So when you look at the field of candidates for this race, I'm past. Here's my take, and Iman, I want you to tell me, I'm past putting people in just because they're popular.
I can agree.
I'm past that.
I can agree.
I'm at a place right now, and y'all can agree with me or disagree with me. I'm at a place right now is, are you going to get the job done? I don't care if we see you at the latest parties. I don't care if you rubbing shoulders with celebrities. I don't care about none of that. As the state's attorney, your job is to prosecute. Mm-hmm. Now, if your prosecutorial record is not strong enough to withstand the onslaught of violence that's in Baltimore City, then guess what? You shouldn't have the job.
And I also think another point that we need to highlight is a requirement of them. Are you afraid?
Are you afraid?
Politicians who are concerned or worried about their image or not going along with what the higher ups in our government will want them to do, prefer for them to do, they just go along with it. Are you willing to go against the grain? Are you willing to go against what the money behind you wants to do if it's wrong? Are you going to hold up your morals and your ethics, or is it going to fall by the wayside?
And let me just say, let me, and I've said this to the Baltimore Sun and in other publications. When you're talking about people who seem to always be embroiled in some level of controversy, that is not a good thing. You don't want your public servant to always be the controversy around them is not about their policy, but it's about their personal life. It's about their leadership competence. I mean, that's the issue that I have, and I'm looking at Marilyn Mosby. I'm looking at all of those who have been in office, right? And there seems to be, and I know some people say, oh man, there's always a campaign against Black folks or Black women in particular. And I trust and believe. I absolutely know that. But sometimes the controversy can get in the way of the progress that we need to make. And so if the controversy starts to overshadow the gains that you're making as a public servant, then you need to step down. I'm serious. I that's just me. Call me idealistic, call me unrealistic. But the fact is, I don't want my public servants to be constantly involved in controversy, taking away their time, their energy, their focus away from the job that we vote them to do. I don't like that. And I don't like to keep putting people back in office because they're cool. Man, hell, cool. You got Black men that's dying on the streets of Baltimore. We're on track to getting another 300 murders in the city of Baltimore for the 7th or the 8th year. Man, somebody needs to go to jail. Stop coddling certain people. Come on, man.
Stop coddling juveniles. Stop giving them a little slap on the hand and convict them.
Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that one.
And I know. I get it. And check this out. And look, and I know in Baltimore, and I'm sure in a lot of cities across this country, when you got Black folks that are at the top of the leadership chain, it becomes this like circle. And I've been asked to do things. People that say, oh, Farajii, you know this person, you know that person. That's all well and good, but I don't hang out with these folks. You know what I'm saying? And I think that one of the things that I have grown to know is that it's not about me. Yes, I can get into certain spaces. I know this people, I can call this people, but it's not about me. If it's not about the people, if it's not about making sure that the people are safe, that the people get a better quality of life, what the hell I'm concerned about? I could get at a damn party with the mayor. Who cares? Like, who cares?
Farajii be at the Oreo games with Brandon Scott, y'all.
I get the invites. I'm not even going front. I get the invites. Sometimes I accept, sometimes I don't. But guess what? I always ask myself, like, all right, let me make sure I'm not just doing it. It's like, where is my motivation? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to ask yourself, because once you get up in those spaces, you get to talk to people of power, then you know what I'm saying? You kind of forget. And I thank God. I thank Almighty God for blessing me to be surrounded by people who always remind me. They send me a little text message, Iman, or say, you know what I'm saying? They be like, all right, I see you. And they be like, I see you. Don't act other than yourself.
How you doing, good brother?
But then I grown to understand, like, none of that matters. None of that matters. So what? You could go to a game with the mayor, but guess what? If the mayor ain't doing what he's supposed to be doing, the streets are supposed to be doing, guess what? I can't be like, yeah, yo, I'm gonna ride with you all the time. Like, I have a duty, especially as one who stands in front of the camera and the mic, to still hold you accountable for the things you say you want to do.
But that afro be fresh though.
Ooh, that afro crisp. That lineup is crisp. And be moisturized very well.
Right.
And look, check this out. Check this out. Because guess what? If we don't do it as black media officials, if we don't do it, they're going to get blazed by white people.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to get blazed by white people. And I'll say this, and as we wrap up, black people make up, at least in Iman, what are we, about 65% of the population in Baltimore City?
Yeah, something like that.
65, but guess what? We don't wield 65% of the power.
Period. Drops mic.
We one of the few cities on the East Coast that has a predominantly black population, but we still don't have the power to back up the population.
We don't utilize our power.
We don't have that power.
There you go, Amar. Yeah.
We don't use
it. We
don't use it. It's in our hands. We have to move with it. We have to, like you say, have a strategy. But again, we'll get there.
So I don't know, and I'm not asking y'all ladies who y'all got for state's attorney and all of that stuff. I'm not going to ask about. But where do you see this race going? If Marilyn Mosby gets elected once again, where do you see the city going? Because I know that part of her narrative for her campaign has been, they've been after me since I got in office. This is an attack. They looked at my personal finances. This is an attack.
Iman, I'm gonna let her go because she actually lives in Baltimore City. I actually do not. So I'm gonna let Iman take it.
Right. I understand.
No, but I mean, I'll say something, but I'll let her go first.
Go ahead, Iman.
I will say, from what I've seen, her work is stop. Her work is consistent from what she tries to push and what she tries to go after. What she's harping on, though, is this whole decriminalizing marijuana. What else, though, sis? Like, what else besides decriminalizing marijuana? And I understand your point of trying to keep young black men out of jail. Cool, right. I support it. But what about the violence? Like, these juveniles have armed robberies. They're in jail for maybe 2 nights, and they're back on the street doing the same thing, and it's repetitive. So what else?
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah. You're asking about where, if there is going to be anything else that
other than decriminalizing marijuana.
Yeah.
What else?
And she's the state's attorney. That's her job. It's literally to use the discretion to determine who she's going to prosecute and that is her job. Like, it literally is the definition. I think it'll be a lot of the same. I don't know if Baltimore is ready yet to let go of a familiar face. I don't think Baltimore is ready yet for the change.
I hope so.
Say we want it, but I don't think we're quite ready yet. So
I really hope so.
I think she will keep her seat. I think she will run. Probably unopposed. Are there Republicans on the other side for state's attorney? Probably. So she'll probably have maybe a competitor in the fall. Yeah, but I think she will pull this one out.
You think she's gonna pull this one out?
I think that people are holding on to the whole Freddie Gray situation.
What you say?
I think people are holding on to how she handled the officers with the whole Freddie Gray case. I think that's what.
I hope not. That was terrible. No, that was terrible. She shot for the moon. As a prosecutor, you have to be realistic about the charges that are going to stick. You want to get you actually want to get a conviction. It is not just to get in the news.
But that's the thing. Her intent, I think, is what people are going to hold on to. Like, it's what we got to, like y'all said.
You know what, though? Here's, and I'm glad that you said that, because I feel like we do make those big decisions based on intent. And we can't. We can't. Yeah. We can't do, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, somebody might say something, like you might be in a relationship with somebody and they say something I didn't mean, or I didn't intend to hurt you, but you did. You know what I'm saying? So we can't operate from a space of, what'd you say, Lisa?
That's a good example, Farajii.
You can't operate from a space of what you didn't mean. You got to operate from the space of what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So your intent is fine. Like, nobody comes into public office intending to destroy people's lives. But guess what? People's lives have been uprooted and destroyed, right? As a result of you being in public office.
That was his goal. Trump's goal was to uproot.
Well, other than Trump. But you know what I'm saying? We can't work from a space of intent. What I'm looking at is, do you have the capacity? And again, I think one of the things that I would have to say about Marilyn Mosby is just simply the controversy around her personal life, her personal business, and her leadership. All of those things have pretty much overwhelmed her ability to really make the gains. And she got so much. And it's because Baltimore, we just got out of a situation with our former mayor, Catherine Pugh.
Yeah.
Literally went to jail because of a scam that she did that violated the trust of the citizens of Baltimore. We've had these conversations. I mean, it's unfortunate that we have to why do we have to hold on to that? Like, we need to start fresh and new in Baltimore. And this is honestly, I know people probably like, man, no, because I'm just, again, this is not a personal thing. It's not about, what can Farajii get? No, we need to start fresh and new, because the city deserves great leadership. It's just that real. The city deserves that. I love Baltimore. I come from Baltimore. As a result of that, I want to see Baltimore thrive. I want to see Baltimore win. So why? So you want to get mad at me because I want to see Baltimore win over a personality? Shit.
Yeah, it ain't about a personality.
It ain't never happening. We could be buddies and homeboys and all that. But if you're not good in the role that you are voted to be in, bye. Thank you for your service. Amen. Or lack thereof.
Amen. Yeah.
I mean, it's just that simple. It's just that simple. This is not a popularity contest. This is not high school, not college. This is people's lives. This is real life. If you can't do the job that you voted to do, then we're going to have to let you go. Thank you for your time with us. Just like at any other, as your job. You got supervisors and people at your job that don't do their job, but everybody likes them. But some way along the line, they messing up the flow of things. So, yeah, it is what it is. We'll see how this thing plays out. We'll see how it plays out. So
we'll know tomorrow.
I hope so. I hope so, because the Baltimore City Board of Elections, boy.
That's another show.
Jokers can't count votes and all that, man. It's sad.
Another show.
It's sad. That's a whole nother show. Lisa Winnie, host of your Millennials Anonymous podcast, Iman Heath, who is an activist and entrepreneur. Always enjoyed this the conversation with both of you sisters. Thank you so much for being so good for the culture, Lisa and Iman. Thank you. God willing, we'll talk again next week.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Go vote. Get your ass up and vote.
There it is. Stop playing. And that's right. And let them know that Baltimore is really the heart of the DMV. All right, folks. Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all. All right, folks. That's going to do it for us today. Hopefully you enjoyed the show as much as we did. Make sure y'all show y'all support for Black Star Network at blackstarnetwork.com, where we are continuing to put out great programming that speaks to our interests, that have very, very candid conversations about what's going on around the country and particularly in your community. But most importantly, this is our platform to tell our stories the way they need to be told. So make sure you support blackstarnetwork.com through all of those avenues, as well as letting people know they can download the app for free and sharing it, the videos, all the pieces of content that we got. You can share it right there online. Roland Martin online on YouTube, on Facebook, all of the videos. Our newest show, The Pivot, hosted by Stephanie Humphreys, is now streaming. You can also check out the latest episode from our sister Deborah Owens for Get Wealthy on Tuesday. So we got some dynamic shows. Make sure y'all continue to show y'all support. All right, that's going to do it for me. I thank each and every one of you for tuning in. Stay tuned at the 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Roland Martin Unfiltered is coming at you. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.